Hi, welcome to Knowledge by Nature. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you're returning, lovely to have you back. Today we're going to be doing a flip through of the Dimensions Math 1A. So this would be, in essence, someone that's going into first grade. We're going to be taking a look into both 1A and 1B. 1A is set for the first half of the year. 1B you go for the second half of the year. So let's zoom in. Before we get all zoomed in, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Also, if you're not part of the team already, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you join me for all of my videos. I'm a homeschool mom to a first grader, and most of my videos are going to consist of homeschool hauls, different curriculum flip throughs, and just different things that we're doing throughout the year as far as morning baskets, and occasionally maybe a little book review here or there. Again, I'd love to have you a part of the team. Let's get zoomed in and take a look at this. Alright, so we're going to start in with looking at the teacher's guide for 1A. For 1A, you will have a teacher's guide, a textbook, and a workbook. So we'll set the workbook and the textbook over to the side for the moment, and we're going to look at just the teacher's guide first. You can also get test booklets for Dimensions Math, but at first grade I didn't really think that that was too important to get. The very beginning opens up with the contents, and for chapter 1 we have numbers to 10, chapter 2 number bonds, chapter 3 addition, chapter 4 subtraction, chapter 5 numbers to 20, chapter 6 addition to 20, chapter 7 subtraction to 20, chapter 8 shapes, and chapter 9 ordinal numbers. And then we have resources, which list the Black Line Masters for 1A. Black Line Masters can be found on the Singapore website under the Dimensions Math. Hi there, I wanted to give you a quick little look at the Black Line Masters that I was talking about earlier. So you can go to singaporemath.com and you can go to their resources page. And here we can see that we have the videos, the video stories, or we can just jump to the grade. And so that's what I'm going to do right here. I'm just going to jump to 1A. And it jumps down and we see that we can look at the individual Black Line Masters for each chapter, or you can just download all the Black Line Masters for the book. This is for 1A. So as you can see right here, there's 149 pages of these, and this is where I'm not going to be printing every single thing this time. I'm going to go through and I'm going to see what exactly that I need, and maybe I have from last year that I can reuse. And so there are a lot of things to be used here. Here is a blank 10 frame that you'll use a lot. I'm not going to be using the 10 frame from Dimensions Math because I purchased this set last year, and so I'm going to keep using this. 10 frames is just something that we use constantly throughout Dimensions Math, and therefore I thought it was a good investment. And it comes with 4 of these magnetic tiles, and so you have a 10 frame on one side and you have a 20 frame on the other side, and then it comes with 100 of the counters, and so they're yellow on one side and they are red on the other side. The other thing that I think is a very good investment is these Math Link cubes. I purchased these way back when she was in preschool, and we use them all the time. We use them for so many things, and it's really nice because these coincide very well with Dimensions Math. You'll see these linking cubes within their teaching a lot, and it's really nice to have that exact thing to use along. And then there were also a lot of, if we go here to 1B, we see that we're going to have some math matching cards and things like that. And so there's a lot of the clock ones that I won't necessarily have to print off because I can use it along with this little learning resources clock that we have. We use this quite a bit, and then that way we can kind of look at the time. It's both digital and analog, and it's just a fun little thing to have on the desk. But I did want to show you about, this is where the resources are on Singapore Math, and so once you purchase the program, you can go in here, and this is where all your Black Line Masters are. And I just wanted to be able to show you what the Black Line Masters are also, so you can see that it's just different worksheet pages that you're going to use. There's a lot of like cards where you would match cards. There's another 10 frame. Let's keep looking here. Digital clocks. I'm just going to keep scrolling here for a little bit so that you can see. So as you can see, there's a lot of different black line masters. This is one, I think I will for sure be printing because I don't currently have anything for fractions. So there's definitely things that I'm going to want to use, but there's also a lot that I am able to use. One thing that I don't have yet is these little bears, and we've always just used like little LOL dolls or even little Lego creatures for this. But the bears might be fun. I think we're probably about over needing the bears, and so I don't think I will purchase them. But if you have bears, that's something that you will see a few times within the program. So I just wanted to add this in there so that you could see exactly what I was talking about on the Black Line Meisters. And as you can see, they're all in here. And even though the book goes to 3A, I think, you can see that 4A, 4B, and 5A are here, and that 5B is coming soon. So even if you have a 4th and 5th grader, this is possibly something that you might be interested in looking at. We used dimensions math for our kindergarten last year, and from what I can tell, this is set up pretty similar. So you're going to have in your teacher's guide, you're going to have a dimensions math and how they approach and the way that they kind of frame their teaching around. And so the first page kind of goes through all of that. Then it talks about the materials. So we've got the textbook right here, the workbook right here, the teacher's guide, which we are currently looking at, and you can buy the test booklets. These children down here are the children that you are going to be working along with throughout the year. I am seeing right here that my children have grown a little bit, and so that's kind of fun that it seems that Emma is a little bit bigger in 1st grade than she was in kindergarten. Then we have online resources, and so that's where we're going to find the Black Line Masters, Letters to Home, and so this is actually built more for a classroom versus homeschool. However, it's very, very easy to accommodate it and to make it what you need for the home. There's videos that you can find. Then we've got some imagery, material list, activities, and standard assignments. It gives you an overview of how to use the teacher's guide. Every chapter you will have a chapter opener, a think about it section, a learn section, a do section, activities, and then brainworks. It also shows you the scope and sequence that they have set up for dimensions math. So this will be in every single one. It shows you what they start with, and it goes from pre-K to KA, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade. 3rd grade appears to be where we're stopping for the scope and sequence. So we have chapter 1 here, and this is going to give you an overview of everything that's in this chapter. So we see that we have our chapter opener, we have lesson 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It tells you what pages to find those lessons on, and then it shows you the resources that you'll use. So textbook, textbook workbook, and so on. Then we have the workbook solutions. So on page 19, it will show you all of the answers that go along with the workbook. It shows you the objectives that you're going to be teaching throughout the entire chapter, as well as more notes on chapter 1. So here we're doing numbers to 10. It tells a little rundown here, comparison terms of what we're going to be talking about, the materials that are going to need to be used, the Black Line Masters that will need to be used, and here we have 10 frames, and so I don't print off a Black Line Master of the 10 frame because I already have some 10 frames that we used. 10 frame cards, number cards, color it, trace it, write it, make a match cards. So I will go through these and see what resources that I already have that I can use. If not, I will go ahead and print the Black Line Masters. For kindergarten, I printed all of KA and all of KB Black Line Masters, and I found that I very rarely used them because I had other resources, and so this time I'm just going to go on a chapter by chapter basis and only print the things that are necessary. We also have some storybooks that kind of coincide with some of the learning sometimes, and so we have that they have different stories here listed that you could read outside of the lessons. And then again, you can, as a homeschool teacher, you can ignore this one. And then we have the activities. There's a blank page for notes right here that you can use, and then we've got our chapter opener. When I use this, I usually do the chapter opener and lesson 1 together. You wouldn't necessarily have to do that, but the chapter opener is really just introducing what we're talking about. It shows us the objective, and this is showing us an image of what their textbook is going to look like. So I will pull over their textbook here. Has a small section here of talking about that we're going to learn, do, exercise, practice, review. It's showing our little characters, and then we have the table of contents here, running through everything from 1A, and as we can see, chapter opener is matching here. One thing I do want to note that is different about 1A than KA and KB is that the workbook is black and white. If you used kindergarten or if you saw my video for kindergarten, you will notice that the workbook and the textbook are both color. However, I'm thinking that maybe going forward from first grade on that the workbooks may be black and white. That is certainly what it is for 1A and 1B. So as we can see, the student will have their textbook, and we are seeing what the student has right here. So our first activity is Count the Classroom. Provide students with a list in pictures or words of objects in the classroom of which there are 10 or fewer. Have students find and count the items, and then they show you some examples: tables, flags, maps, windows. Again, very easy to accommodate the homeschool for this. Then we have a scavenger hunt activity. Have students find objects to match the given quantities. For example, ask them to find 3 yellow leaves. Collect different types of leaves, sticks, seeds, or other natural objects. Have students write or draw pictures of quantities of the objects. You don't necessarily have to do all of these activities. Normally, we would look at the activities, we would decide which ones we thought would be best for us, and do at least one activity during the day. You have to remember that this is made for the classroom, and so there are going to be multiple activities and different actions that they are listing. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do them all. Now we've jumped into actual lesson 1. Right here, where our objectives are to count groups from 1 to 10, read the numerals and numbers to 10, represent numbers to 10 on a 10 frame, and then our lesson materials are counters and a blank 10 frame. Right here, we're seeing a copy of what the student would have with their textbook. So you don't necessarily have to be sitting right next to your student because you can see what they're seeing. So here's the student textbook. We're seeing lesson 1, pages 2 and 3. Right here, pages 2 and 3. Let's think about the objective, how they're going to be working on this. Then we're going to learn, and then we're going to do. And over here we have 2 sections of things to do, and then we also see that we have 2 more pages to go along with the textbook. So we'll go right back over here. We'll look at pages 3 and 4. How many are in each group? So they will count how many are in this group and write the number. So we have the examples here, and again, the exact same page in the teacher's manual. For this particular lesson right here, we have a magic thumb activity, count the rockets activity, color it, trace it, write it. So you can decide what works best for you. We have our next number snap. And so this star, going back to the activities here for a minute, we see that we have little shapes here. We have triangle, 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 star. If we go back over here to where it was telling us about that, let me find that. Here we go. If it's a circle, it's a foundational activity. If it's a triangle, it's an on-level activity. And if it's a star, it's a challenge or an extension activity. So if you feel that your student is really grasping it, go ahead and do that challenge, or you can skip it if you feel like they don't need the extra challenge yet, or if they're just not ready for the extra challenge yet. And so we can see right here, we have the challenge right here, which is the next number snap. This will complete your lesson 1. Now we can go here to the workbook, and this is going to be additional exercise for the lesson. For KA, I believe there was only 1 page of practice within the workbook. And so I always felt we needed a little bit more. So as we can see here, for lesson 1, we actually have 4 pages of practice this time for lesson 1. So I do like that there is a little bit more practice here, and it will be interesting as I use this throughout the year if I feel like the workbook is still necessary. I know for kindergarten, I very much felt like we needed more. And again, even 4 pages for someone that doesn't mind to do worksheets is not that much. But depending on what the subject is, 4 pages may seem like a lot. So we'll play that by ear and see. But as we can see in the textbook, we have 4 pages of practice. And now we can go to the workbook and we will have 1, 2. So we have 2 additional pages of practice for exercise 1, chapter 1. So as I'm looking at the workbook here for chapter 1, I'm noticing down here that I believe this is Dion. He is saying that the workbook includes basics, a review of basic concepts, and problems for practice, for challenge, and to check understanding. This is something that is new from KA. So for 1A, we have our exercise 1, and we see that this is the basics. And then we can go over here and we have some practice. So here is for exercise 1 of lesson 1, which we were looking at. We go over here and we start lesson 2. Very similar to the other time, you're going to have think, learn, activities. And as you can see, there's quite a few activities here. So don't get overwhelmed by that. Pick the ones that you feel is best for your students and use those. Lesson 2 is over already, and then we will jump to lesson 3. Now I'll just kind of flip through this for a little bit so that you can see. Now we've come to the end of lesson 1, and we have the exercise 1 pages, and this is going to coordinate with the workbook. So this is the answers for the workbook. We can take a look here. We've got chapter 1. Lesson 1, we see that we've got the little cupcakes, all the images here, and here it's showing you. So you can just do a really quick grading and not have to, even though we can all do first grade math, it's sometimes just easier to be able to look at the answers really quick rather than have to think about it. And so it's showing, at the end of this chapter, it is showing all of the workbook pages that go with that. Now we've got Chapter 2, Number Bonds and the Overview. More notes, and then your chapter opener. And I will just keep flipping through this. Now we've come to chapter 3. And so it's just going to follow that same format every single time, and it's just really, really easy to use. And my most important thing that I would say to take away from this is, even though it's set up for a classroom, don't get overwhelmed by the amount of activities. Really, just choose 1 or 2. And I mean, sometimes all of them will be great for your student. Do them all, but don't feel like you have to do every single activity every time. And you can go back if you're struggling in a section and do another activity the next time. And so let's say we're having a little bit of issues with this chapter here. You know, try this one day, try this the next day. Don't try to put it all in one day. I'm going to take a little bit of a quicker flip through for 1B, because really it's, once you see 1A, it's very similar. You know that you're going to have the same steps throughout the same time. So again, I have our textbook, I have our workbook, which is black and white, and I have my teacher's guide. 1B is going to be picking up right where 1A left off, so we are starting with chapter 10. Chapter 10 is we're working on length, comparing numbers to 40, addition and subtraction within 40, grouping and sharing, fractions, numbers to 100, chapter 17, addition and subtraction within 100, chapter 8, time, and here we're telling time to the hour, to the half hour, and to 5 minutes. And for money, we are going to be looking at coins and bills. So for KA, we only dealt with the coins here, and for KA, which was for kindergarten, we were only dealing with the hour. And so we didn't get into the minutes hardly at all. Again, we've got the resources that we would need. We see the same math curriculum approach. We're getting introduced to our characters again. We're seeing that we've got the textbook, workbook, teacher's guide, and test. It says right here, a pencil icon at the end of the textbook lesson links to exercises in the workbook. Talking about our online resources, how to use the teacher's guide. It shows the scope and sequence again. I'm just going to flip through this really quickly. And then here we are starting chapter 10. So we have the overview of where we're going to have lessons 1, 2, 3, 4, the pages that we can find that on, the textbook and the workbook pages that coordinate, and the objectives, a little breakdown, notes of what we're going to be dealing with for chapter 10, all the materials that will be used. There's no black line masters on this one. Here's the stories, letters to home, our note page, and then we have the chapter opener. And so as you can see, it's the exact same setup again, and that's what's nice about this. Even though it is slightly teacher intensive, it is set up the exact same way. So you know every day that you open this book, it's going to be set up the same way. You have your chapter opener, you have some activities, you have your lessons, objectives, think, learn, do. And then we have here exercises 1, page 1, that's telling us where to go for our workbook. Here we're seeing the textbook. Lesson 2, and it's always color coordinated, so we know that chapter 10 is pink, chapter 11 is orange, and so on. So really, really highly recommend this book. We enjoyed it so much for kindergarten. I can't imagine that we're not going to love it for first grade. And again, it is a little teacher intensive, but I just think it's so easy to pick up and go with that I just can't see using anything else for a while. We just love it so much. Here's the teacher's guide, the workbook. So we have multiple pages here, all black and white. And so there, I mean, this is quite a bit that we're looking at here to be able to practice with. And then here is the colored textbook. Makes it really easy to use. Having it color coordinated in here also. The workbook is color coordinated as well. We're seeing our characters throughout it the entire time. I would highly recommend that you get a 10 frame. You can get black line masters, but I think it's something that if you're going to use this program, go ahead and invest in some 10 frames, and also linking cubes, because they use the linking cubes a lot, as you can see right here. And then that way your student is using the same thing that they're seeing in their workbook and their textbook. If you have any questions or comments about this, please let me know. I'm debating doing a lesson with this, so you can see us do the lesson. If you're interested in that, put that down in the comments so that I know that that's something that maybe would be worth recording for you. This is Dimensions Math. Please give me a thumbs up if you liked this, and consider subscribing so you don't miss any of my next material. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time.